What's up, everybody? Thank you guys for joining the broadcast. It's been a few days since I uploaded. Been traveling a lot. Um, Now that I'm out here in VA, the DMV actually, the Virginia part of the DMV, um, you know, just enjoying the holidays. Crazy week 13. Um, we're going to take it all the way back to Thursday's games and give you full recaps. All right, so without further ado, let's talk first about um, the Lions and the Packers. Okay, this was a pretty good game that kind of set the tone for this conference. This is a strong NFC North, but now it looks like it will come down to the Packers and the Bears. My MVP for the game is Jordan Love. He was 18 of 30, 234 yards, and a season best 4 passing touchdowns. This is the Packers that we expected all year. This is why most people picked them to win it all, including myself, even though I bailed and went with the Rams. But if they continue, I would still place them over the Bears. And what also we're seeing for this conference is that the Lions are losing their magic that they've had over the years. And Campbell needs to ask some serious questions about what direction they're going. You know, a lot of people had them coming out of NFC North, but it looks like they might limp in the playoffs if they even make it at all. You got to start questioning the fourth down calls. You got to start questioning the offensive calls. I mean, they put up 24 points, but at the end of the day, the Packers controlled the whole game. You know, the Packers were just overall well balanced. They put up good numbers on the ground and good numbers through the air. And, you know, they were pretty solid the whole game. So this is the Packers separating themselves. And if we talk about the conference, which I'll probably talk about it once I get into the Bears recap, I'm going to have to give the conference to the Packers still, just because the Bears are that much younger. The Packers are a little more experienced, even though they're kind of young too. But at the end of the day, where does that leave the Lions? Only time will tell. All right. So here's something that was kind of unexpected. The Chiefs are 6-6. What was expected was that Mahomes threw for 4 touchdowns. But the Chiefs are 6-6 and they're fighting for a playoff spot. Do you know that this is their 5th road loss? That's the most ever in the Patrick Mahomes era. And we got Prescott with 320 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. I wouldn't put him back in the MVP race, but, you know, he's doing all right. What we do see is the Chiefs scrambling for position and Dallas becoming a very dangerous team. So back to the Chiefs. Do we think that the dynasty is crumbling? Me personally, I don't. I always say if they keep the 3-headed monster, Spagnuolo, Mahomes, and Reed, they will always have a shot. But Reed is 67, and if you want to compare them to the Patriots, you know, this is about the time that Bill Belichick left the team. So he was fortunate enough to coach Brady for 20 seasons, but Reed might have a few left, if that. So they kind of do need to win, but if Reed leaves that equation, it'll be interesting to see where the Chiefs go. I still think Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback ever. Not ever, but pretty much the best quarterback in general. And I still think Spagnuolo is the best defensive quarterback. I'm a coordinator other than Saleh. But, okay, so back to Spagnuolo. What do I always say? If his defense can hold the teams 3 scores or less, Patrick Mahomes can take it from there. If you look at 4 of the games they lost, obviously they lost 6 games, but you don't want to count the Eagles and the Broncos. If you look at the 4 games that they lost, all of their opponents scored more than 4 touchdowns or had more than 4 scores. Um, that's not what we expect from the defense. We expect them under Spagnola's control to be top tier. This isn't sustainable. If they want to win, they got to hold their teams 3 scores or less, and Patrick Mahomes can take it from there. They've just had a hard time staying consistent this year, and I don't know if the defensive personnel is getting older or they've just gotten figured out, but their defense hasn't been consistent, and then it forces Mahomes to play hero ball. There's no reason why they couldn't have won this game. He threw 4 touchdown passes. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle this moving forward. But until the defense can be consistent, the Chiefs might not even make the playoffs. That's so crazy to say. That's so crazy to say. My Super Bowl pick might not make the playoffs. So, all right. Yo, for the Ravens and the Bengals, can we just acknowledge that Burrow is the real deal? I mean, when he's healthy, he's always in the MVP conversation. And don't get me wrong, Flacco is a good backup. But when Burrow is in, the Bengals are a completely different team mentally, physically, and even the way they perform, everything. Even with the bad defense. So, I mean, they just completely destroyed the Ravens. So, yes, Lamar did have costly turnovers. But it's amazing to see how the Bengals' only hope is their QB. Even with 2 of the top receivers in the league, without Burrow, the Bengals aren't going anywhere. And they prove that time and time again with his performances year after year, or his lack thereof due to his injury. So the Bengals are kind of in a tight spot because he holds the keys to the franchise, but he's always injured. And, the Ravens, they had a 5-game winning streak. It was bound to come to an end, and they also live and die through Lamar Jackson. He had some serious turnovers. 2 interceptions. He had a fumble. Let me see real quick. It just he made a lot of mistakes. He has those moments, right? He's a dynamic quarterback. He's always in the MVP conversation as well. He knows how to escape the pocket. But when he has a bad game, he has a bad game. Let me pull up his numbers here. It just doesn't make sense. 1 second. I usually have everything ready for me, but let me see. Oh, that's why it was under the Thanksgiving games. Yeah, Lamar Jackson had 1 interception and 2 fumbles. And with that type of sloppy play, obviously the Ravens are going to go anywhere because they've never had a good defense. It was all Lamar, just like the Bengals. So these 2 teams show what it really means to have a generational quarterback. The crazy part with that, especially for the Ravens division, is that they still have a chance to win their division. Because every time they have a bad game, Pittsburgh messes it up. And you can see Pittsburgh sliding down very slowly. Um, we'll get to them later, but the AFC North is in serious contention as far as between the not contention, but you just don't know who's gonna come out of that division. I mean, if the Ravens just win out, they got a good shot, but so does Pittsburgh. But regardless of who comes out of that conference, none of them are going to make the playoffs. So it doesn't even, I mean, none of them are going to really do any damage in the playoffs with the way they're playing. You got Aaron Rodgers blaming his receivers. You know, you got the Ravens stinking it up on all fronts, just depending on Lamar. I'm going to just have to, who do I got coming out of that conference? I'll just say the Ravens might come out of that conference. But at the end of the day, it's just great to see how much these teams rely on their quarterback when nothing else matters. Especially the Ravens when Harbaugh is actually a good coach, but he's not coaching great this year. So it's a tricky situation. All right. So we got the Bears and the Eagles. Man, oh man. The Bears are 9-3. They are 9-3, y'all. Who would have thought? The Bears at the top of the NFC North with the Packers and the Lions in the same division? I mean, this is incredible. Williams, he did okay. 17 of 36, 154 yards, 1 touchdown. But it was the ground game. They put up 255 yards on the ground between the two running backs. Kyle Managi and DeAndre Swift, 2 touchdowns with them as well. And they pretty much controlled the whole game. Do I think they're the best in their division? Their record says yes, but I still got to give it to the Packers. As far as the Eagles are concerned, they have a lot of problems themselves, but it's mainly self-inflicted. What people don't realize is everybody wants to gang up on Hurts, but the Eagles, the way they win is run first. They got the tush push, and they got Saquon Barkley. A.J. Brown is a top-tier receiver. He has every right to complain. But look what happened. He put up big numbers this game. They don't win through the air. They don't. Without Barkley, without their run game doing what it's supposed to do, they're not going to go far. They have to get Barkley. They have to figure out how to get him going because he has been a non-factor this season. He needs to dominate like he did last year if the Eagles want a chance, and their defense needs to tighten up. And if that means A.J. Brown has to leave, fine. They don't need a true number one receiver when they have a ground game the way they've been having last year. So they got to figure it out. They got to stick to their formula. I don't know why they can't get Barkley going. Maybe because teams are ready for him. But it's just crazy how much of an impact he has. But everybody wants to talk about the dysfunction in the locker room. They want to talk about the receivers. They want to talk this and that. Dude, it's all about Barkley not getting the dominance that he had last year. And Eagles fans, shame on y'all. Y'all egged the offensive coordinator's house. You didn't have to do all that. You did not have to do all that. Typical unforgiving Eagles fans. I mean, y'all just won a Super Bowl last year. So not only do the Eagles need to fix their internal issues, they have to get Barkley going if they want to make a deep run in the playoffs. 2 weeks ago, I thought they were going to run away with the division. Now, of all people, you got Dallas knocking on the front door. So the Eagles better get it together quickly. They better get it together real quickly. But salute to the Bears. They're playoff bound, in my opinion, even though it hasn't been official. But good, solid team, good, well-rounded team. even though I do give the division to the Packers. Now, another surprise. I mean, look, y'all, this NFL has been wild. If you remember my videos in the beginning of the year, I was just happy to see the Panthers get a couple wins under the belt and show that they have improvement and that Bryce Young is a worthy quarterback. But now they are 7-6. They are 7-6. They're having a great run this year. And we can't take anything away from them this game. But if we're being realistic, Matthew Stafford, who is my MVP frontrunner, just had a bad game. They just had a bad game. He just had a bad game. Oh, and I got the final score wrong. But at the end of the day, I should fix that. It was the other way around. Let me see. I need to fix that. A few moments later. Thank y'all for joining this live with me, by the way. Okay. I don't know why it has. Oh, that's why. There we go. That's what we wanted to see. Okay. So, anyway, Matthew Stafford just had a bad game. He threw 2 interceptions, with one of them being a pick six, and he also had a fumble, which let the Panthers chew out the game clock. So, you know, players mess up sometimes. What is the quote? Players F up too. Even though the Panthers had a great run, I gotta give it to them. But at the end of the day, my MVP frontrunner, Matthew Stafford, just had a bad game. He's definitely gonna bounce back. But with that said, the Panthers are on an unbelievable run, and they pretty much just have to worry about the Bucs in their division. So I'd like to see how far they go this year. Yeah, but I wouldn't read too much into this loss by the Rams. They just had it all falls on their quarterback just having a bad day. San Francisco versus the Browns. Well, look here. Second start in the Sanders era. I know people are tired of talking about Sanders, but what else is there to talk about the Browns? Maybe Myles Garrett, he is going for the sack record. He will get the sack record. Phenomenal defender. But at the end of the day, we want to see Shadur. And the reality of the matter is, do I think he's a franchise QB? I think he is a good QB that came out of a bad draft class. Him and Cam Ward, I feel like, are about the same as far as skills-wise, and you see how Cam Ward is doing. Do I think Shadur should have been drafted higher? Absolutely. He should have been a first-round quarterback, and he should have got first-round treatment, practicing with the ones all through minicamp, playing with the ones all year, and just giving him a shot. But the reality of the fact is, this was a bad QB class, and the only one who's really doing well is Jackson Dart. I think Shadur is a good QB. I think Cam Ward is a good QB. I think they should both be given a fair shot. At least 2 years with starters and better weapons, and we'll see how they perform. But from what I'm seeing, I don't think either of them are generational talents. My issue with the Browns is they didn't give Shadur, who should have been a first-round quarterback, a chance. Now they're just throwing him at the end of the year when nothing matters. He has the most potential on the team. He is a good quarterback. Dylan Gabriel is not the franchise either. If you want to talk about who the franchise quarterback is and you had to choose between the two, obviously I'm going with Shadur. Because Gabriel definitely is not the answer. He's not the answer. No disrespect to him, but he's not the answer. But I think They should treat Shador like a true first rounder and not a fifth round quarterback. Build around him and give him a couple years to prove himself. I don't think he's that great. I don't think Ward is that great, like I've said already. But at least give him a fair shot and let them play the way they're supposed to play. I feel like there is some collusion, but it doesn't matter now. He's going to be the starter the rest of the year, barring any injury or just crazy performance. So we'll see what happens. But they really got to give him a full shot next year before we can really give him a full assessment. And before I get off this topic, Judy, what are you doing? That little sideline spat you had with the quarterback was totally uncalled for. You got 35 receptions with 421 yards and 1 touchdown for the whole season. You are not that guy. And I took your side when Steve Smith was clowning you because you're a young rookie or you're a young receiver. I can't remember if you were a rookie that year and you just weren't putting up numbers. You just needed a better chance and a better situation. So you would think that would humble you. But for you to go screaming at a rookie and being animated towards a rookie, you haven't put up enough numbers to do that. You're not A.J. Brown. You're not Justin Jefferson. You're not a top-tier receiver. I wouldn't go as far as Steve Smith went and call you a tier 3 receiver, even though your numbers show it. We do have to take in account that you are playing for the Browns, who have a terrible offense. And honestly, Stefanski's a bad coach. I understand that. That's why I'm not going to fully focus on your numbers. But at the end of the day, you should never come at your quarterback, your rookie quarterback like that, his second game starting. You shouldn't. You shouldn't. You haven't put up enough numbers to do that. Just play the game and call it a day. You were out of pocket, Judy. That's all I'm going to say about that. And there's nothing wrong with being competitive, but you were out of pocket. Okay. Here we have another surprise. The Houston Texans are 7-5. Can you believe that? First of all, the Colts were surprised too, okay? But the Houston Texans, I mean, they looked terrible at the beginning of the year, and now they're in the mix. They are in the mix. And really, okay, so they're all in the AFC South, right? The Colts, they're still 8-4. They're still at the top. Jacksonville is right next to them, okay? This is a crowded conference like the NFC North. And where's Houston going to fit in all this? They could still make the playoffs, but where are they going to fit in all this? I think we're starting to see the Colts finally come down to earth a little bit. Wow. Jacksonville's getting some momentum. And now with Houston also getting that momentum, this is a very crowded conference. And I can't wait to see how this ends up. But the Colts now have to make the final push towards the second half of the season. So they don't just look like a team that got lucky in the earlier of the year. If they want to do what they've been doing, they got to get their rushing attack. Taylor was held under 300 yards again for the third straight week. And the total offense was Taylor was held under 100 yards for the third straight week. And the total offense was held under 300 yards. So they got to get back on the saddle. This is another one, kind of like the Eagles, where Daniel Jones is a great quarterback, but if Taylor's not going, then the Colts won't do that well. I wouldn't panic yet, but if they really want to show that they're for real, they got to win out, especially with a conference this crowded. So great game. Good job for Stroud. Good job for Houston's defense. It's really, really good to see them do this, and we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens in the AFC South. All right. So these are the type of games that are kind of boring to cover. Nothing really to see here. Bottom feeder teams just trying to play out the rest of the year. Maybe see who's going to stick around for next year. I don't think Tua's that guy. Tyler Show for the Saints had a decent outing, 239 yards, 2 touchdowns, but he was sacked 4 times. Tua didn't do much, 157 passing yards, no touchdowns. It was just basically the ground game. So these guys don't got much going on. 17-21 final score. The only bright spot was the Dolphins' rushing attack, which their running back put up really good numbers. So, but, nothing to see here. We just got to see what happens towards the end of the year. I'm surprised McDaniels is still around. I'm surprised he hasn't got canned yet. But, hey, they won this game. I doubt they're going to fire him now. They'll probably do it at the end of the year at this point. But, yeah, and the Saints, they just got a lot of work to do on their end. So, speaking of bottom feeder teams, we have another one with the Jets and the Falcons. So, you pretty much know the Falcons are out of playoff contention. So are the Jets. It seems like, they're just playing for the love of it. This was a very entertaining game, actually. Tyrod Taylor did decent. Kirk Cousins did okay. Kirk Cousins had 230 yards, just a touchdown. It really wasn't about the QBs, though. Bijan Robinson had 142 yards with a touchdown. And, they just did all right. So, sorry, this is my first time using a teleprompter. So, just trying to figure out how to use it. Trying to organize my numbers here. I got a lot of numbers all over the place. But anyway, Tyrod Taylor is going to be the quarterback for the rest of the year. He got 2 touchdowns, 1 on the ground, But both teams with lost seasons, they don't got much to play for. So they made it entertaining. So we just got to see. I don't know where the Jets go next year. I don't know who they could pick up. Maybe they should grab Shador. I still think the Falcons have their quarterback with Michael Penix. So they just got to kind of regroup and play better next year and fight the injury bug, because they did have a promising start. So, speaking of lost seasons, we got the Bucks versus the Cardinals. And the Cardinals have a lost season, but not the Bucks. The Bucks had 3 straight losses coming into the game, but, we expected them to beat the Cardinals. Brisket did good with 2 touchdowns. He did have a crucial interception that was in the red zone. Mayfield did all right. He had 194 yards and a touchdown. And the Bucks did what they had to do to maintain their very tight divisional league. We'll see what happens, because it looks like the Panthers are on their trail in the NFC South. But Mayfield and the Bucks, they got a lot of fight in them, and I still think they will come out of the division. But I also will take Mayfield out of the MVP race. Not that he's been playing bad lately, but he's just been playing regular at this point. And he's been hurt a little bit. So, but as far as the Cardinals go, Murray's not that guy. Murray is not that guy. Y'all better get a quarterback ASAP. Brissett is okay. He's definitely a great backup. He can sustain y'all, but y'all better get a quarterback ASAP. So, but it was a decent game, 17-20. Um, Identical in rushing yards, but the Cardinals did have 2 turnovers. So congratulations to the Bucks. I think they're going to come out of the division. But that remains to be seen. The Panthers are hot on their trail, as I already said. Okay. Now here's my surprise. The Jaguars. They're 8-4. They are 8-4. I felt like they were going to be just okay, but I didn't think they would be competing for a divisional lead. Even the Colts. I mean, the AFC South has just been very surprising this year. It's a very interesting scenario. I think they will make the playoffs. I just don't know who's going to come out of there. Maybe the Colts might stick with it, but Jacksonville is hot on their trails, and Houston is hot on their trails too. I already explained this with the Colts and Texans game. So this is a very interesting division, and I just want to see what happens in the end, because the Jaguars just winning their division, that doesn't even sound right, the Titans, they'll lose out the rest of the year. They need some soul searching to do at the end of the season. You need to ask yourself, is Cam Ward really that guy? However, I wouldn't panic on him just yet. I still say give him some more weapons and give him another year to prove himself. I don't think he's a generational talent, but I don't think he's as bad as the numbers are showing. So we'll see what happens with that. But this is just crazy that the Jacksonville Jaguars are 8-4. And again, it's a 3-team carousel between Indianapolis and Houston, and of course the Jaguars. So obviously, Tennessee's out of there. They're all in that same conference, but I don't know what to make of this. This year really is any given Sunday. Any given Sunday. So we'll see what happens. All right. Seattle Seahawks versus the Minnesota Vikings. This was a shutout. I expected them to win big, but I didn't expect the Vikings to score nothing. But the issue is the Vikings have absolutely no quarterback. And it was good for Darnold to play against his old team. But what do you expect from the backup? Max Brosner, undrafted, he was terrible. He threw 4 interceptions, 0 touchdowns, only 126 yards passing. And Seattle did what they had to do. They just marched through. Their defense is really good, and Darnold plays well in the games that kind of don't matter. They didn't really have to prove nothing this game. But they are neck and neck with the Rams in NFC West. But we already saw what happened when they faced the Rams. So, again, I'm never sold on a Darnold-led team, but Seattle as a program overall is good. We just got to see if Darnold can shake his big game, big game choking, He hasn't performed well in the games that mattered, and we'll see what happens. But the Vikings are in a whole lot of trouble. Maybe they're better off just keeping Darnold because McCarthy ain't it, and Max definitely isn't it, obviously. So, it's so crazy to see how good they were last year to see how bad they are now. So, but maybe they got rid of Darnold because they didn't want to give him a big payday after how he did in the playoffs. They need a QB. So, speaking of Los Angeles, you got another situation where the AFC West, where the division is very crowded. Obviously, this was an interconference matchup, and the Raiders are completely out of it, being 2-10. But the Chiefs are trying to catch up, And Denver has a strong lead, and then you got the Chargers in the middle with 8-4. Do we think? Actually, I know the Chargers aren't going to come out of that division, but the real question is, how are the Chiefs going to do? But let's not get too distracted. Let's talk about this game. Easy win for the Chargers, 31-14. They had 22 first downs, only 149 passing yards, 192 rushing yards. That seems like how they handled most of the game. Herbert did throw 2 touchdowns, but at the end of the day, the Chargers are the Chargers. They're a solid football team, but can they win when it matters? Can they get over the hump? I hope they don't have to face Denver or the Chiefs, because the Chiefs, they have to figure out their defensive woes, but the Broncos, their defense is just crazy. And this is where you see someone like Herbert, who also chokes. He might not do well if he has to face the Broncos. But crowded division, it's just crazy that the Chiefs are fighting for a playoff spot. But obviously I do think the Chargers and the Broncos are going to go to the playoffs. So it'll just be interesting to see where the Chargers place themselves. Okay. The Bills versus the Steelers. Okay, first off, Aaron Rodgers, what are you doing calling out the receivers? You had a horrible outing. Okay, number one. Number two, I heard your comments. You were probably 100% correct. But that's what you do behind closed doors. You don't throw your receivers out in public. You don't say, oh, they don't show up to film, blah, 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 blah. And you try to cover yourself saying, oh, he's a competitor, so I know he's not happy about this. Dude, you just sound like a terrible teammate. Have these discussions behind closed doors. Don't have it with the reporters. Again, no doubt in my mind what he said was true. But you don't light a fire under your team's behind by calling them out publicly. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but a lot of the fans wanted Tomlin to be fired. They were saying, fire Mike Tomlin. I think maybe he shouldn't get fired, but there should be an amicable separation, because the Steelers are literally dying a slow death. And it's like the division is gift wrapped to them, because the Ravens had a lot of losses due to Lamar's injury. And now he's playing catch up. But there is no reason why the Steelers should be sitting 6-6, fighting for a division that was pretty much handed to them when Lamar went down. So it might be time for Tomlin to pack it up. Send him to Washington. So easy win for the Bills. Do you think Josh Allen is still in the MVP race? I think so. Matthew Stafford is my front runner, but Josh Allen is consistently doing what Josh Allen does. Easy win for the Bills. So, speaking of the Broncos and the Commanders, this was a thriller. It was a nail-biter. Denver came out on top, which is what expected. But as a Commanders fan, I was happy to see that we kept it competitive and kept it down to the wire. That gives us hope for next year. Because coming into the game, I thought we were nothing without Daniels, but we still do have a decent team. So, but at the end of the day, the Broncos are just too good. They figured out a way to win. And who knows, if we didn't go for 2 and kick the field goal, maybe we would have won in second overtime. But at the end of the day, at 3-8, we had a right to go for 2, And Denver, they just did what they normally do. They win. They handle their business. They got the second best record in the league. And it'll be interesting to see how far they go. Sean Payton did a great job. I hate to say it, I don't like the way he treated Russ, but he was right. He got his guy in Bo Nix, and he figured it out. Did I think he should have treated Russ the way he did? No, because Russ put up good numbers too. But Sean Payton really turned the Broncos around, and I can't wait to see how far they go. All right. So Monday Night Football. The best team in the league, New England Patriots. How often have we heard that before? Maybe not in the past 6 years. But I cannot believe of all teams to have the best record in the league, it's going to be the Patriots. I mean, they're just too good all around. Offense, defense, special teams, everything. They had a kick return for a touchdown. Drake May threw some touchdowns. They had rushing scores, if I'm not mistaken. They're just good all around, and Mike Vrabel's doing a terrific job. And as far as the Giants are concerned, they're a very entertaining team to watch, but they don't got nothing going on. And Jackson Dart is too competitive, but he's getting hit a lot. And I know he said he's not a soccer player, but bro, you got to protect yourself. But not to get distracted, the Patriots solidified that they're a solid team, and that I'm surprised that they're the best in the league. I mean, I figured they would just be an 8-win team at the end of the season. I thought this was going to be a 2-3 year process, but just the very next year, they've completely turned themselves around. And May is, I know early in the year, I said pump the brakes on calling him an MVP, but he is definitely an MVP conversation. What did I say? Give it a few more games. Well, here we are a few games later, and they're sitting at 11-2, best record in the league. You got to show love to Drake May. You got to put him in the MVP conversation. It's just crazy to see how things change so much from year to year. You don't have your usual suspects. Let me just pull up some stats here. Let me see. Where's the full box score? Oh, they don't have the stats up there yet. I mean, they do have the stats, but I don't have it. Anyway, it's just a great performance by the Pats. I'd love to see how they perform in the playoffs, but right now in the regular season, they've shown that they're bringing back the magic back to New England. I mean, this is just incredible. 33-15, 21 first downs, 276 passing yards, and 119 rushing yards. They are just completely balanced. Similar to Denver. They might be on a collision course. That'll be a great game to watch. Do I think that they can make a deep playoff run? I still think they're young, but guess what? If the Chiefs get out, if all the teams we expected to go to the playoffs don't do well in the AFC, the Patriots could make a deep run. I just thought that they were too young. But they got a good shot, man, because the AFC is highly contested, and it seems like the Chiefs and the Broncos are the only ones coming out on top. So, great game for them. Looking forward to seeing what's up in Week 14. Thank y'all for joining. I'm out here in the DMV. I fly back to California tomorrow. Y'all have a good rest of your evening. It is dinner time for me. Talk to y'all later.